The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we're webcasting to you live from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. This is the home for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters. It is also the home for Autism Live. We're thrilled to be here with you live on a Wednesday morning. Wednesday is my favorite day of the week because, as you know, if you watch the show, in just a moment, we're going to be joined by Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. She is going to answer your questions live here on the show in a segment that we call Ask Dr. Doreen. A little bit later on in the second hour today, we have Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I am joined during that hour by my good friend and colleague, Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson. She's the Executive Director of Autism Care and Treatment Today. Today, our special guest is Vena Tiero. She is an amazing mom of two, count them, two boys on the autism spectrum. She's a single mom. She's a filmmaker. She is the mom, the creative genius behind My Tiero Boys, the first of 5 documentaries showing her journey with her two boys. She's going to give us an update today, and we're starting a new segment during Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy, where we're focusing on portraits of families. You know that no two families are the same, and we're giving parents an opportunity to be here, sometimes when it's appropriate with their kiddos, other times when they're in school, we'll have just the parents, but to tell their story of what they did so that you can hear all the different journeys that people are on and ask them questions, which brings me to my next thing, which is our entire show is meant to be interactive. We hope that you will participate by talking to us, asking questions, giving us comments, suggestions of segments that you would like to see. There's no better day to do that than on Wednesday. So Calby's going to show you some of the different ways that you can participate. I'm going to remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. When you go there, if you click on the triangle that's on the computer screen, you'll be able to watch either our live show or our most recently recorded live show. Now, if you want to go back in our archives on that site, all you have to do is click on the playlist button that's in the upper left-hand corner. You can watch the 100 most recent shows that we've done here. If you want to go back further than that, you can do that on our Roku channel, on our iTunes channel, or our YouTube channel, of course. Now, I will remind you, too, that on our homepage, autism-live.com, there is something called the live feature. It's a series of white boxes. If you will put your cursor in the one that says your question, all you have to do is type and hit enter. That's it. No login, no password, no username, none of that. Automatic gratification. There's no cost to it. It's totally free, totally anonymous. Send us whatever questions, comments that you have. I do encourage you, if you're asking a question of one of our experts, to send as much information as you can, including where you're located. I wish that autism resources were the same wherever you are in the world. Unfortunately, that's not the case, and it will help our experts to give you more information about what might be close to you so that we can get you the help and support that you need and deserve. Having said all of that, my friends, it is time for Ask Dr. Doreen.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen. Welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen. We welcome Dr. Doreen Grandpichet, who's
Good
here with
morning.
us in the studio. Good morning.
Good morning.
Such a thrill to have you here.
Always a pleasure.
I have to say, for those of you who are watching, you know this already, but for those of you who might be new to the program, Dr. Doreen Grandpichet is a true expert in the field of autism. I believe the preeminent expert in autism in our time. I don't know what other time there would be for autism, right?
Thank you.
But she's a true expert in the field of autism and working in this field for more than 3 decades. And I always like to remind her and remind you, not only is she an expert in this field, but she's a visionary. She sees things as they come, shifts, pivots, and helps us to be prepared for. We don't deal well with change. Our kids don't deal well with change, and she helps us to see the change that's coming and adapt in a way that's productive for our entire community. So we thank you for that.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very
And we're
much. You're very kind.
Thrilled that we get this opportunity to sit with you every week and you answer questions from our viewers live that they can send in. And we do like to remind everybody at the start of the show, though, that there is no expert who can give individual specific advice in this format. It would be a disservice to those individuals.
Right.
But having said that, Dr. Grandpichet has such a wealth of knowledge, and when you ask a question, you kind of get to tiptoe around in your brain, and that's a really wonderful thing that you let us do.
It's also fun for me because I get to just see what's going on out there and try to help different things, different issues that are coming up for parents.
Well, I've always said there are many things I admire about you, but one of them that I admire the most is your ability to take really great perspective taking.
Thank you.
This is something we all need to be working on, but you're a perfect example because you are able to look at it from a parent's point of view, a child's point of view, and I see when parents send in questions that you get to see what their perspective is.
Absolutely.
And that, that can only be a helpful thing. So you're actually helping everyone when you send in questions.
Yes, you are.
So it's a service that you're doing. And it's a service that you do in answering the
Thank you.
questions and giving information that they can then take to their local expert, or they can make a decision about what to research next. It's very, very helpful. So thrilled that we have the opportunity to have you to do that, and thank you so much
Thank
for that.
you.
I want to jump into some questions because we got a lot of questions, more coming in on the live feature. Keep them coming in. We'll answer as many as we possibly can. And I promised that we would get to this one today,
Sure.
somebody earlier in the week. I know some adults with possible echolalia, and they want to know, how do we treat echolalia?
Right. So echolalia is a really interesting thing. First of all, for those who don't know what it is, it's when an individual just repeats something that they heard. So they're echoing. Now, it could be immediate echolalia, which means they repeat just what they heard right then, or it could be delayed echolalia, which means they repeat something they heard earlier, like from a commercial or something like that. Most of the time it's from TV.
And sometimes we call that movie talk, correct?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
So with echolalia, originally it still is sort of classified as a self-stimulatory behavior, or that symptom, which is defined as repetitive stereotypical behaviors that really have no function. So that's kind of where it falls, but symptomatically, if you look at what it is. But if you really think about what echolalia is, I think it has different functions. So delayed echolalia, in my mind, is often an attempt to communicate. So the person is repeating something from a TV show or from some other conversation they heard, and they usually do it in sort of everything about it is communicative except the content. So it doesn't always make sense, but sometimes it's in context and sometimes it's completely out of context. So sometimes you'll hear a child who's just repeating something like that they heard from a movie, and it just absolutely doesn't even fit into the situation. Other times you hear a child will actually use it in order to communicate. And in both cases, I think the child's attempting to communicate. The ones that are in context, the child's a little bit more aware and is kind of trying to use something they heard to plug, just like we do when when you learn a second language, what you do a lot of times is you use little sayings.
Right.
And sometimes they don't make sense because you say them a little bit wrong, and sometimes, and then finally you get it, and then you can use it fluently. And I think it's the same thing. I think with our kids, they're using something they heard, and they're repeating it, and they're trying to communicate. That's most of the time with delayed echolalia. Now with immediate echolalia, when a child repeats something that was just said to them, I think it's similar in the sense that I think children are trying to respond, but they don't know what's being asked of them. So instead of responding, they just echo what they heard, because what they think is they're being told to say something. So when we used to teach our therapists, our supervisors many years ago, one of our very smart senior supervisors did this presentation one time, or two of our very amazing senior supervisors, Kathy Thompson and Carolyn Breddick. They did this dialogue which they were showing our supervisors, and everything they said, they were trying to say, this is what kids hear. This is how kids hear things. And they were just saying, blah, 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 you know. And to a child who doesn't understand what the instruction is, if they're really trying to gain the reinforcer, if they're really trying to do the right thing, they'll tend to just repeat.
Okay.
So
It's kind of a good sign then.
echolalia is always a good sign.
Okay.
Echolalia is never a bad thing. It's always a good sign because there's a motivation behind it to interact, to communicate. So it's not a bad thing.
Okay.
In fact, in the old days, we would, the first, if you think about it, I say the old days, but even now, if you think about it, the first type of operant that we teach in speech production is repetition, is echoing.
Right.
So we used to call it verbal imitation. Now it's echoics. It doesn't matter. That's what it is. You're trying to teach the individual to echo exactly what they hear. So the development of that skill, having the ability to echo, is definitely a very strong skill because it allows you to start producing language. Some children can't echo, and those are the children where it really becomes very difficult for them to vocalize at any point. So and then we move on to an augmentative type of communication. So, a visual communication system. But so now when it's an adult, what that tells me is that there was no intervention to teach this adult how to functionally communicate, so they have stayed with a very early skill, which is echolalia. With the adult, it's the same thing. I think adults who echo are trying to communicate, but to teach an adult, now the way to stop echolalia, so let's just address that, is to actually replace it with appropriate language and speech. So it's much, much harder with an adult because it's become kind of ingrained over many years. It's a habit now. But generally speaking, it might still work. I've seen very few adults, by the way, where there's echolalia. Pretty severely the adults who have severe autism do often echo. And I think it's the same exact thing. If you give them a different form of communication that is effective, the echolalia will reduce and go away. And that would be, in most cases with adults, you would want to go to a visual system, even if the adult is vocalizing, because the visual system allows the adult to focus on communication rather than sound and playing with sound. For so many years, sound of language has been useless to the adult. It's very, very important to visualize. In fact, I would have to say most of my adults, if they're severe, I will not, if it's a severely functioning adult, if it's an adult who has severe autism, I am definitely implementing a visual system. Okay. I can't think of a time, I'm just going through my head, I can't think of a time where I haven't had a visual system for an adult. Even if they're vocalizing, it doesn't matter, because the visual system helps them organize their vocalization. Okay. You need a visual system. So for an adult, I would definitely implement either a PEX system or an OG device, like an iPad or something that allows them to request and label things visually. They can still vocalize it, I want something, or it is something, but they would also visualize, they would also put it into the system, touch a button or give an icon. They would physically do that. And that will, as that skill of being able to request and label increases, the echolalia will go away.
Okay.
So echolalia is generally replaced by appropriate communication.
Fascinating, but I want to go back and reiterate that it's a good sign. I think
it is a good
so
sign.
Often we panic
It is a good sign.
Because it looks different,
Yes.
and we panic, but it's a good sign.
And the other part, the important thing about it is that even though it's a good sign, it's an early development sign. So you don't want to reinforce it. You want to
Okay.
leave it alone, but you don't want to reinforce it necessarily unless you're a very young child. If it's a very young child who's developing echolalia, then it's fine to start reinforcing it a little
Okay.
bit because it's an early phase of language development. But you definitely don't want to reinforce it in an adult because you're trying to get rid of it.
Right. If
So-
you want to move through that phase onto the next
Exactly.
phase. Okay.
And so with adults, you would reinforce their communication through other systems, which would be
Okay.
aug or visual, and vocalization of appropriate labels and requests, but not when they echo. So when someone echoes, you would ignore it. And you would then perhaps give them their aug device so that they can communicate. Often, a parent or a caretaker knows what the individual is trying to say.
Yeah.
So you can help to provoke that.
Okay, great. We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to be back with more of your questions for Dr. Doreen Grandpichet during Ask Dr. Doreen. Stick with us.
It's every parent's desire for their child to have a great start in life. Yet there is a condition affecting more children's lives than pediatric cancer, diabetes, and AIDS combined. Autism strikes 1 in every 150 children.
Today, 1 in 110 kids in the U.S. will be diagnosed with autism. That is a huge jump from 30 years ago when it was 1 in 30,000.
Startling new report finds the number of children with autism is skyrocketing. The Centers for Disease Control estimates 1 in 68 children has a form of autism. Now that's a 30% increase in just 2 years.
Well, a lot of the children and all the accomplishments over the last 20 years, I'm thrilled.
I think what kept me was the feeling that, you know, I would have a parent come to my office late at night at UCLA and just fall apart. And this is a long time ago, and there were much less back then in terms of services and knowledge and so on. And I would just sit with the family and the parents and walk them through and try to take away some of their fears, you know. And at that point I realized, I think the thing that's actually most important to me is that process. I mean, thank God that I've been very, very lucky and blessed to have so many incredible clinicians join me along the way and just develop CARD in such an amazing, magnificent way. That I could, you know, for me it was more really about how can I help the families? What can I do for the moms, the dads, you know? It is just, and I feel like, you know, there's no way I would ever really know because I haven't had my own child go through this, but I've experienced it with people a lot of times.
Hi, this is Megan. I'm in first grade all by myself. My teachers are so fabulous. I like to read books. I like to go to my friends' birthday parties. I like to invite my friends to my birthday parties. I once had a sleepover with a friend. I like to have play dates with my friend. I'm the best reader in my class. I like to go to the library. I like to read different series of books. And here's how I learned to do all these things. By my card friends and Dr. Grandpichet. Thank you, card friends and Dr. Grandpichet.
Welcome back to Autism Live and to Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Grandpichet is here with me and she's answering your questions in real time. You can be sending them in on our live feature, autism-live.com. Want to send in a question that came in overnight. And it's funny because we were just talking about when you're learning a second language. And I want to say that this parent wrote in and said, please excuse that my English is not so good. And here's what I have to say to that. Bless your heart, but your English is so much better than all of my second languages that I've ever thought about doing. So let's never apologize for the fact that you are multilingual. Okay, they said, hello, I love your show. And you especially don't get to apologize, having started your statement with that. Love your show. Thank you for all the information you delivered to us. I have a question. My son is 4.5, and we are potty training him after almost a year. He gets to pee in the toilet. Thank God for that. Now we have a big problem. He only poops in a diaper. He can hold it every 2 days.
Even like 2 days, up to 2 days. That's
up to
pretty,
2 days.
yeah.
Even if we don't put a diaper on him, he doesn't poop. We know this time we put him on the toilet, he only pees.
Right.
School and I have been trying many things, getting them to work. Please, doctor, how can we have him poop on the toilet? Now he's getting old. He really needs to learn. Would you help me?
So this is one of those funny tricks that we have. So hopefully it'll work. So put him in a diaper, which is fine. If you know he has to poop, that means you really know the time. Put him on a diaper, and have him sit on the toilet.
In the diaper?
In the diaper.
Okay.
So he has a diaper and he's sitting on the toilet. He poops. Great. If he can, he'll empty it into the toilet. If he can't, he'll just throw it away. Teach him to take it off.
Okay.
And throw it there and leave it and then walk away. And that's that.
Okay.
Gradually, over the course of the next, I don't know, maybe week or 2 weeks, cut the diaper smaller and smaller and smaller. You could probably go from the sides or something like that. He will be okay as long as there's a diaper and he's sitting on the toilet. He learned that. As the diaper gets smaller and smaller, some of his poop will actually go into the toilet. Celebrate. Tell him it's great. Give him a reinforcer. And sooner or later, he will just get rid of the diaper himself. So it's a shaping procedure. It's very silly to think about it, but it's easy.
It works.
It works, and it's easy.
Wonderful.
Our kids get scared of the toilet because they don't know where that hole is going, and they're little. Make sure he has a toilet seat, by the way. That helps a lot, too. Initially, you probably want to have a child toilet seat if he's a little guy. Kids feel like they're going to fall in and get sucked out, Well,
honestly, I just read a post from a friend the other day who said, I want to apologize to women everywhere because as a man, he always thought that our whole thing about the toilet seat being left up was just ridiculous. But the other day, one of his boys left the toilet seat up. He went in the middle of the night
and
sat down and fell into the toilet.
Yes.
And did a description that was hilarious about what it felt like and how horrified he was and how there weren't enough showers in his life.
Exactly.
We're going to fix the problem. And he said, I want to apologize to every female ever.
Oh, that's awesome.
Clearly, this is a huge issue and we have not been paying attention to it. And, I think most women at one point, I remember being a very young kid and falling into the toilet at one point. It's horrifying.
It is awful.
And I was old enough. I was probably 8 when I fell into the toilet. It's horrifying. But imagine as a kid.
You're 4 years old.
Yeah, scary.
And it's very scary, very scary. Even if they haven't fell in there, it's a place they don't know where things are going.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's suddenly suction that takes things away. It's very scary.
Yeah.
So, you have to make other things we've done with kids is also it helps a lot to have a potty seat.
Yeah.
There are these seats that you can sit on the floor, but then as you can also gradually then put them on the toilet. So then it goes from the seat to the toilet. If you can purchase, I don't know where this mom is, but if you can purchase one of those, it's just like a little potty chair. But the bottom of it can be removed.
Yeah,
so
it slides
first,
out, so you can dump it.
Well, not just that, but initially you're sitting on it on the floor, and it has a container, right? But you remove the whole bottom floor, and the top portion can be put on the toilet, so that the child can gradually go from sitting on the floor to sitting on the toilet, except they're sitting on their own seat.
Yes.
And that's a very good way. If you can find one of those, we have them in the U.S., but I don't know if they're everywhere.
Yeah. Fascinating. It is, and I don't know whether it was you or somebody else that had said to me at some point that if you think about it, they've been wearing a diaper forever, and the poop comes out of them and it's visible, and then sometimes it feels like a part of them.
Absolutely,
the diaper
yeah.
feels like a part of them. The poop feels like a part of them.
They
the
have
idea
contact with
of
it, yeah.
letting it go and go down that pipe to we don't know where. It's
Yeah.
like letting a piece of yourself go.
It's very scary for kids, yeah.
Difficult. All right. Well, and I don't know that I would have thought of it that way. Okay. Moving on to the next question. Dear Dr. Doreen, how can I get my high-functioning 5-year-old to make comments and have conversations with his friends at preschool? His classmates are super chatty, but he just quietly plays with his toys and doesn't say much to them. I want his classmates to get to know him and see how sweet and funny he can be, and thank you for your tips.
So this is a hard question for me to answer because I don't know the functioning level of your child. It sounds, high functioning is great. So there's two things to consider. If he's high functioning enough where you feel he has all the skills involved that are necessary to be able to interact with his classmates, then the best thing to do is to set up smaller events. Usually this really just sounds like shyness. And so what you would do is you'd set up smaller parties or smaller get-togethers with a couple of friends. A lot of times it's just hard for our kids because they are just shy. And it would be appropriate to maybe invite a couple of guys over, a couple of friends over, and do something fun and have them interact. The more he becomes familiar with the children, of course, the easier it'll be for him. If his functioning level is not quite there, in other words, if he isn't comfortable with very specific nuances, like, if they're talking too fast for him to follow all of it, if they're jumping around doing various activities and he doesn't transition well, if there's a lot of social little implications that he's not reading, like, they all talk about one thing but they don't when another child is there. I don't know, there's a lot of social stuff that's very, very difficult to read. If those areas are lacking, then you need to work on the skills first. So this is what I always tell people. We throw our kids into school situations and we expect them to socialize, and that's not going to happen because it's really very similar to having a child with a second language. When they go to school, they're not comfortable around other kids because they don't get everything. They don't get 100%. They might be pretty high functioning and get 90% of what's going on around them, but that 10% makes a big difference. Yeah. And so they feel very shy and embarrassed. Embarrassment, by the way, is a very, very good sign. Yeah. It means that they want to look good in other people's eyes. So not only does it imply that they care, but it also indicates they have theory of mind. So yeah. Embarrassment is one of those things I'm always looking for. And it sounds like your child is embarrassed, which is a fabulous thing. So I think what you really do is just give them more assistance by making the group situation smaller, and also by old studies in social skills showed that whenever the child had an object that other kids were attracted to, it always increased conversation. So you'd have to get the coolest objects that are out there. Like right now, it depends again on his environment. It's a 5-year-old. So that's not too hard. It's like whatever is out there right now. Ninja Turtles is coming out again. So maybe he would take to school some object from one of these films or something, and it will attract other kids and they'll talk about it. It has to be an object that is cool, that attracts other kids. So
and we found even a T-shirt. Like having the T-shirt that has the logo of the cool thing is a conversation starter.
Absolutely.
I would not believe that, but it is.
Oh yeah, definitely.
With 5-year-olds,
definitely.
They want to be near your T-shirt if it's got the thing that they love.
Totally, and a lot of times group behavior starts after there's one-to-one conversation. So if there's one kid that is the nicest of the kids, that's the person you want to invite home, because if your child establishes a one-to-one with that kid and perhaps a one-to-one relationship with another kid one-on-one, then in the group he will feel much, much more comfortable.
Yeah, it's amazing how that works. All right, I'm going to do one more question before we take
Sure.
a break because we're getting a lot done here. What are the statistics of active contributing adults, meaning productive citizens who were diagnosed with autism as a child? I would love to have that statistic
I
as
would
well,
love to
too.
know that. I have no idea. I don't think anybody tracks that. It's incredibly important to track, but with strong assurance, I don't think anybody tracks that.
Yeah.
Because what happens is that if an individual is contributing to society, then it's very likely that they're not necessarily receiving other services. And if they're not receiving services, there's no way of tracking it.
One of the things that Taka, we in this year of political mayhem, let's
Yes,
call it that.
say that again.
There have been many people who have put forward comments of things that they would like, and we've covered on the show here that Secretary Clinton put out a plan for autism. We're asking all the candidates to identify if there's a plan. We'll share it here on the show. But Taka, as an organization, put out things that they would like to see, and one of them that I thought was so interesting that had not occurred to me was an autism census.
Yeah.
That looking to garner all of the numbers instead of guessing. When we every 10 years we take a census and they fight for specific questions on the census, and it could include questions about, are you on the spectrum, and having a drop-down menu of, do you consider yourself high functioning?
If I remember correctly, the last census I filled out asks about this, because in California at least.
Oh, in California, maybe.
Yeah, because I remember thinking, wow, they've added autism to the census.
Interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
so I think it does actually here. I don't know about other states. In fact, I don't even know if they have.
It's not in the national one.
Right.
But it would be very interesting and educational to know.
Absolutely.
But I would ask you
Absolutely.
to answer this part of the question, that you have had the opportunity over 30 years to work with so many individuals who've grown up and are out in the world and functioning, and I think a lot of people think that doesn't exist.
Oh my gosh.
Clearly, you have seen that, and it's not 1 or 2 or 10 people. Do you have any idea the hundreds of people that we're talking
I honestly
about?
don't. Every day I'm very blessed in that a lot of families have reconnected with me, and I think that's because they can find me now. Carta is so big and so on, but it's lovely to see that. And I have to say that, whatever level of functioning, like I have a couple of adults who are, like one of my adults who would probably still be considered a pretty severely functioning adult, like has a lot of severe behaviors and issues. He has his own dog walking business now, and because that's something he really loves, and he's learned it very well. And when I started with him, he didn't have any of these things, I started with him as a teenager, so it wasn't like I had him as a child. But he's doing extremely well and very happy, and in fact, I should check up on him. I love that adult.
A productive
That's a very
citizen.
productive thing, exactly. I have another adult who's also pretty severe. You might know this mom, but you know both of these parents, actually, you might, because the parents are very involved in autism in one way or another. But this boy has a business where he helps people when they dock their boats to go into a lake, and they have to carry a lot of stuff. So I think it's called his name Jared's Helpers, and he basically helps them take boxes to the lake and so on, and it's a legitimate business. And, that's on the most affected side, and then of course on the kids who have actually recovered. I have not only do we have one of them working here at CARD, but I also have one who is a biotechnician at UCLA. I have one who is getting his PhD at Georgia Tech right now, who lectures all over the world. I just saw a lecture of his in Berlin or somewhere in Germany, and he talks about it's in robotics, so he talks about robotics and developing areas of technology. And he's also one of the kids on Recovered, and you can see extreme behaviors that he used to have. But having said that, I have, and there's another one who works in Georgetown, works for the CIA. I have a lot of them who actually do work for the CIA, which is kind of funny because it shows how smart they are.
Right.
But yeah, a lot of our adults are contributing in one way or another, and it's wonderful to see that.
It's amazing. All right, we're going to take a break, and we're going to be back with more of your questions after this message.
Hello, fellow activists. In our last segment, we talked about step number 2, educate yourself. Step number 3 is get support. Now, any journey can feel overwhelming if you feel like you're walking it alone. Well, you're far from alone, because with 1 in 50 kids diagnosed with autism today, there are a lot of us out there. Of course, there's always the issue of financial support. Now, there's a handful of organizations out there that offer financial support to families in need. ACT Today, or Autism Care and Treatment Today, is one of them. Visit our website at www.act-today.org to find out more about our grant process. I want to talk about a different kind of support today, emotional support. Now, you can get that from other travelers on this path. Some of the best advice I've ever received is from the moms of other kids with autism who went to school with Wyatt or were involved with programs with him. Then there are the pioneers. These are the families that have gone through this years ago, and there was very little information out there. All of these people seem to have the desire to pay it forward. Now, one of them, Lisa Ackerman, who is one of my mentors, started an organization called TACA, Talk About Curing Autism. She actually took the concept of mentors and support groups and made it available to everybody. You can go to their website, talkaboutcuringautism.org, to find out more. During the first and most difficult year after Wyatt's diagnosis, I wrote an email to close family and friends, letting them know what was going on and the challenges our family was facing and why we dropped out of sight. I was amazed at the outpouring of love and affection and all the help I received from that email. First, you have to be vulnerable. You can't be afraid to ask. Try this out. Could you cook me a meal? Are you going to the market? Can you pick me up a few things? Could your kids play with my kid and make them feel included? Or can you come over and clean my house? Well, maybe not that last one, except with your best friend. And maybe the best support of all is having someone that listens, and that doesn't cost a dime. So until next time, surround yourself with the loving kindness of others and keep the faith.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're here during Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Grandpichet is here with us, and she's answering your questions in real time. We hope that you will go onto our homepage, autism-live.com, and I know many of you are sending in questions, and I'm getting to them as fast as I can. What are some of the dynamic artistic skills that most children exhibit who have autism?
What are some of the dynamic artistic skills? So,
can we really say,
though,
that most children have it? I mean,
no.
All kids are different.
Yes.
But we see and we show on the show a vast array of some of the different things some of the different talents that our kids have.
Absolutely. I think it's probably about the same percentage of kids in typically developing kids and autistic kids. It's a certain percentage. It's not most kids, for sure. But I think with autistic children, when they have the talent, it tends to be very strong.
Yeah.
So music, for sure, is one of them. There's many kids. Maybe it's a little bit higher percentage in kids with autism. I'm not sure. But there are kids who are hugely talented in music. I mean, from, playing instruments to just incredible growth in playing instruments. I mean, we know one we were just talking about, but then there's many of my kids where, and it's such a huge difference in their lives when they actually develop that talent. Yeah. Art is another one, of course. I mean, I have some beautiful art in my room upstairs, which was done by one of my kids, Jana, and so there are some kids who are tremendously artistic and producing beautiful visual art.
Check out the Art of Autism. It's the-art-of-autism.
Right, right.
And you'll see they've got a beautiful calendar out that's all
that's
art
nice.
that's done by individuals on the autism spectrum,
There's
all ages.
One of my older kids, lelandlee.com. You should look it up. Leland Lee, Lelandlee. He's online, and if you see his website, it's ridiculous. Wow. It's mind-blowing. Like, he's 1,000 times better than Picasso. Like, just unbelievable art. Unbelievable. And I never would have thought when he was young, well, you don't know, you know,
Right.
and then they develop these skills and it's just fabulous. And it's such a good out for them. It's such a good place to go. So all kinds of arts, music, of course. I'm trying to think of other particular
we've
skills.
had people that are dancers.
Dancers, we've had many dancers, that's right. So I think it's in similar areas. I would say one of the things that sets our kids apart is that a lot of our kids have a very amazing memory, whether it's a visual memory or an auditory memory. They do have a very incredibly strong memory. Some of the kids, others have a very weak memory. I mean, it's both are there. But those who have a very strong memory tend to use that in these arts, you know. So, like, of course, everybody knows about the kids or adults who can draw maps just by memory. It's incredible stuff.
Yeah, savants that just
absolutely.
Like, there's no
and music
explanation
too.
for it.
I mean, one of my kids went from just I just suggested at a clinic, can you please, you know, like, please introduce him to music, have him start doing piano. And exactly a year later, when I saw him, he was performing publicly in places like House of Blues and so on, because he's a magnificent pianist, which I think is just incredible that we didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, and I will say this too. We every year now we have from Fullerton Cares, they do a comedy show and for autism, and the last couple of years they've had comics who are on the autism spectrum, and this is a whole other area.
Oh, wow.
You have one little guy at one of your offices that we got to meet during the Miracle Project, and if he doesn't go into stand-up comedy, then I don't know anything.
Really?
Oh my goodness, so funny. And even his mother has said, well,
That's
we're just going to
amazing.
have to move out of his way and let him be a stand-up comedian. Hilarious.
That's
hilarious.
amazing.
He's just a little guy. So I
love
can't
it.
wait
I
until
love it.
he's of age and can be on stage. You will know him at some point.
That's cool. That's so great.
Hilarious. So funny. All right, moving on. I want to take a question that came in this morning. Dear Shannon and Dr. Doreen, any suggestions for help with emotional regulation and impulse control? I have a 6-year-old that can tell me what are good choices to make when he gets angry, but usually ends up hitting, kicking, or throwing objects when he's upset. The things that make him upset are losing games, friends teasing, or not playing fair. His ABA therapist works with him on this, but he still gets physical at recess and gets sent to the principal's office. And thank you for your great advice.
You know, it sounds like you're on the right track. You just need to practice a little bit more, and you need to help him a little bit more. So it's wonderful that he can he can tell you all the things that are good choices when a person gets angry. Make sure they're relevant to him. Make sure they're things that he can do, and then do mock practice. So, like, set up situations and tell him to pretend to be angry and then to actually go do that thing. So that's another stage. It's kind of like role playing it. And then another thing you can do is practice the situation at home. Like, for instance, what are the things that make him upset? Losing a game. So practice losing a game. Play a game with him, let him lose. And then right when he's about to lose, get him ready to immediately prompt him to go into one of those activities that calm him, like breathing or counting or whatever it is. I think you're there. He just hasn't actually made the connection between, like, when he gets all worked up and angry, he doesn't realize that's the time. So, you know, you need to help him make that connection. Practice it with him more at home, and it'll help him at school. Another thing to do is give him a visual, like make a list. If he can read, I assume he can, 6-year-old, you can just make a short list of, like, I can breathe, or you can have pictures of him doing those if he's not able to read. I don't know what other activities you've given him. I can walk, I can do an exercise, whatever it is that I can count. Most of our kids would teach them to count and breathe, and that helps them a lot. I can close my eyes, I can think of something else, all those things. Like, give him a visual or list each one and help him. And when you practice it, have him pull that list out, because it helps our kids to be reminded. Then when he's in school, perhaps he can have a visual of that list in his pocket, something like that. Ideally, someone is in school with him and prompts him. Initially, you always have to kind of prompt first, and then the child will pick it up on their own. So I think you're almost there. Just keep going with it and give him a few more clues and a few more prompts of how to connect the real in vivo situation to the practiced one. And, you know, the way to do that is to practice it at home.
And then a huge reinforcer for
Huge
when he does
reinforcer,
it.
huge reinforcer.
Yeah.
And you obviously you want to practice those situations that are the lowest anger provoking first.
Right.
And then make sure you get to a point where he really can manage. You know, most of the time what happens to us is we can manage a certain amount, but as soon as the anger really hits, we lose it.
Right.
We all know we're not supposed to lose it, right?
Like, we're all, you know, but then sometimes we all do. Okay, you guys are filling the thing here, and I want to get to a bunch of questions. Good morning. Thank you for the time you give us. My daughter, 8, high functioning, has enough language to communicate her needs. In full mainstream inclusion, she receives ABA, uses skills, speech, OT, and cognitive therapy, doing great progress. I need some ideas to implement at school while there is a behaviorist in the mainstream classroom willing to help. She has trouble maintaining conversations. However, she initiates the talk by asking personal questions like, what's your favorite items, etc. And then she leaves. She likes kids and loves school and maintains grade level. I would just like them to take it to the next level and help with social communication. Any ideas? Thank you so much for everything. I value your input and help. And I appreciate that she recognizes that things are going really well, and there's this moment of time that there's still a behaviorist, but that's going to end soon.
Yeah.
And wanting to capitalize on the fact that there's still this
period of time,
gap.
absolutely. And I love talking to people like this because
Yeah.
it's very easy for me, and it sounds like a very involved parent, and I love that.
Yeah.
So bless you for doing so much hard work. So you're on skills, which is fantastic. You go to the social curriculum area of skills, and you go to the lesson called social communication. Within there, there's a whole ton of different subsections. Social communication, which is the thing you want your daughter to do, is initiating conversation, but it also has sections to teach what you do to maintain conversation, stay on topic, appropriate body language, how to repair conversation when others aren't interested, how to read body language inferences about the fact that they're losing attention, and then how to repair it, taking turns in the subject matter. I mean, it's a whole bunch of different things that it sounds like your daughter needs prior to being able to successfully do the whole thing. You know, social communication or conversation is a series of behaviors. It's not just one behavior. It really is about saying something that's of interest to the group, listening to them, allowing them enough time, commenting, building on it, knowing when what you said produced an odd reaction, knowing how to stay on topic, knowing how to change topic if it's been on one topic too long or when people are getting bored. I mean, turn-taking appropriate. There's like a million little skills involved in social communication. So I really suggest that you use that particular area of skills and you make sure that and if you are using skills, you probably have her assessment so that it should show that she's lacking in those particular areas. A lot of times we hope that our kids can just go off and function and do these things, but it's really important that you give them the individual tools. And it may seem a little bit, let's say, basic for her, but I promise you, it's kind of like someone who learns a second language and they're fine communicating out there, but as soon as you ask them to write something, you realize they don't have grammatical structure because they never learned it right. So what you want to do is you want to go back and practice those tools, those basic building blocks. In fact, they're called building blocks in skills, because what they do is they strengthen the content, and then it allows the individual to be much more fluent when they put it all together. So really that's the area you want to go to.
Okay, great. I'm just going to jump into the next question here. Hello, Shannon and Dr. Doreen. I'm from West Virginia, and my daughter receives Medicaid through disability services. I just learned they cover ABA services up to $30,000 the first year. I'm in desperate need of help for my daughter who is 4 and high functioning. I've been scrambling to find ways to get treatment and can't. Does CARD accept this yet? And thanks for all that you do. And they sent their email, so I'm not going to share the question.
Yes, we do. We accept Medicaid. We're very happy to accept it anywhere because we are, we're trying to help as many kids as we can. It differs per state and it differs per type of funding, but we have several centers in Virginia. I think they're
West
in Virginia.
Virginia.
West Virginia. Oh, so we're not in West Virginia. However, we could certainly do remote services for you in West Virginia, which is not a problem. But what you would need to do is, I think we'll take your email and we'll give it to admissions, and we'll tell admissions to get in touch with you and start asking some information. We'll need a copy of your insurance card, your Medicaid card, and some more information, and then we'll figure out how we can best serve you.
And one last thing I want to add is that I know a lot of times the state has a law about the cap that they pay is a certain amount. I just want to make you aware of the fact that there's something called the Mental Health Parity Act. And if sometimes those caps are just ridiculous things that are there, and they're not the truth. Because if there is any policy in that state that covers the kind of behavioral health that we're talking about for any other condition, then the cap that you have is what's on that insurance. So the $30,000 number might be significantly higher.
Or not exist. In fact, federal mental health parity doesn't necessarily allow a cap.
Yeah.
Because there are other disorders that require mental health services and they're not capped. For instance, if you have schizophrenia, you're going to receive services for the rest of your life, period. And mental health parity means that even if it's a mental health problem, it should be treated like a medical problem. And so they cannot put a cap. A lot of states have caps, and then when it comes right down to it, they have to remove the cap. So I wouldn't even worry about the cap at this point. You'll get services.
Okay. I want to squeeze one more question in here really quickly. Thank you for Autism Live and Skills. Mrs. Shannon and Dr. Doreen, I have been teaching my 6-year-old to ask questions from Manding for Information lesson, which she's picking up, but she's using questions like, do you want juice, instead of I want juice, which she was using very well. So how do we need to tweak this? A wise one.
So this is fabulous because this is exactly the question that the earlier person asked about echolalia.
Okay.
So in other words, you're saying, from what I understand, you're saying to the child, do you want juice? And instead of saying, I want juice, she echoes, do you want juice? I think that's what they're saying, right?
Probably right.
So what you need to do is, it's pretty straightforward and simple. You block the response immediately. So when you say, do you want juice, you'll very lightly just put your hand on your child's mouth so that she doesn't start until you're ready to let her start. And you'll help her by starting with I. So you'll say, do you want juice? And you'll say, do you want juice? And you'll say, I, and she'll say, I want juice. Now, you don't necessarily have to block her if you can get your I want in there fast enough. Because so what you're doing is you're essentially teaching her that her response is supposed to be, I want juice. Now, you can start with having her echo the whole thing. So you'll say, and by the way, if the thing you want her to repeat should be slightly louder than the question. Okay. So you'll say, do you want juice? I want juice. And she'll say, I want juice. And then you give her the juice. And then very gradually, you'll make them the same intonation, or loudness. And you'll say, do you want juice? I want juice. And then you'll gradually fade to I want. And she'll say, I want juice. And then you'll fade to I. And she'll say, I want juice. And then you'll fade to, and then she'll say, I want juice. And then she'll learn to say, I want juice.
You know what's ridiculous is that...
For us, it's so like...
No, what's ridiculous is that I hear you say this, and I can't help but smile because I have memories of being in my kitchen and doing this with my child. And what's ridiculous to me is when I was doing it, it felt like the most painful thing ever. And now, because I know what it did, it's such a happy memory of what we did together and how we created this thing and how it isn't an issue anymore. Now it's like my brain has rewritten it in a different context, and it makes me smile. I think, oh, I remember standing in the kitchen and standing there being I, and every sentence starting with I, and then that went away. But I remember standing there thinking, is my whole life going to be this? Am I going to be standing
That's
here
the fear,
holding something and going
yes.
I and hoping that he would say it?
And of course
But
now you
but
can
I
have a
read the end of the
conversation.
book now. And I know
that's so
the
scary.
miracle of
That's
it.
amazing. See, I never saw it that way because I'm not a parent, and that's the thing. Like every step that you're doing in the basic ABA when you first start, it must be so terrifying because you think, this is my life now.
And there's so much grief and resentment. I'm going to be honest about. There's resentment about why am I standing in my kitchen making my kid do this when every other kid is out playing in the sandbox? How come this happened to us? So you're resentful, you're scared, and you think this is, I have to do this and I'm the only one having to do this because you feel like you're alone on the planet. But you're sitting here talking about it and I'm like, oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
Like it was the happiest time.
Right. Well, because
I read the end of the book.
Because the other side, on the one hand you read the end of the book, and on the other side it's a different thing. It's like right now, for instance, it's funny because I can compare this to the fact that my daughter right now, and I was just saying this to you, is like with my time, I have no time for anything. I don't even have time to visit my mom. I need to, like my time is so limited. But the truth is that I am now spending somewhere close to 5 or 6 hours on the weekend cooking with my child because she's on this specialized diet. And it is partially, you start out saying like, oh God, why do I have to do all this prep work, and it's so much and all this sort of stuff. But at the end, it's an interaction that you otherwise wouldn't have. And it's a pretty cool interaction.
It's a gift.
When you're starting to work on this stuff with your child, put the fear away because and the resentment as much as you can, because the children learn and it's fun. And like so many parents will write to me afterwards and say like, oh my gosh, it actually worked. He actually said it. Like, I can't believe it worked. And it works. Like, there's nothing like ABA to make language meaningful to our children.
And meaningful is the word, because the relationship that you build with your child, my kid didn't get to be out in the sandbox at that point with the other kids, but you know what? All the parents weren't having this moment.
Relationship, right?
And I've always said one of the first gifts I was aware of from autism was that I for sure knew when the miracles came. Those little everyday miracles that other people take for granted. I didn't have the misfortune of taking those for granted.
Absolutely.
And so I got to appreciate them, and that's a lovely thing. We have to get you out because I know you have things you have to go to, but I thank you so much.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I just wanted to, there was something in here that was very, very fast. It was, what age is a child usually diagnosed with autism? And I'll say the typical age is 3. If you have a provider in your area or someone who's a diagnostician who's been doing it for a long time, like I diagnose kids below 2 even. So, but the most common age is 3, but the red flags come at 1. Like the red flags are much, much earlier, and usually the red flags are things like no eye contact, no development of speech at 1. Those are things that you should probably go and see a professional.
Okay, thank you so much
Sure,
for that.
my
We
pleasure.
look forward to seeing
Throw
you next
that
week.
in.
No, I'm glad. Thrilled that you have this time and that you share it with us. So
Thank you so much.
much for that.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break now and go to the A word, and you can see what it's like when early intensive behavioral intervention starts for the child and for the family. We get a window in to see this really unique and beautiful family, to see how these changes come about. And by the way, this series is complete now, so you can go and read the end of the book for that story as well to see what happened with Jack Riley. All of the episodes are available on YouTube. But here's the A word. Don't forget, when we come back, it's time for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy and our special guest, Vena Tiero. So here is the A word.
So how's the first 2 weeks?
Great and awful.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's great progress and it's hard to get used to. Last Friday was rough for him. At the end of the second week, he had a rough. I think every session was rough for him.
He's doing really well. Like I held up a green marker to him last night and asked him what color, and he said green.
Yeah,
no prompting.
Unprompted.
And black did the same thing.
Black and blue and green, he's doing okay.
The fact that he'll say colors without us telling him first, that's huge. But
He's trying to say everything.
It is.
He tries to say tangled.
Oh, yeah.
He says cars really well, of course.
You say tangled? Tangled.
Oh, yeah.
You say Bambi?
Oh, baby! Excited to be talking so much.
He's got a lot to say these days.
Aww.
Say red. Good,
Red
sorry.
is always hard for him, so that's awesome. He usually just says bleh for red. He'll just vocalize something.
Cute, whatever comes out.
They like it when I say something, so I'll say something.
I don't know, he's so quick to do it now.
You want the doll? Oh, she's pretty. Kiss her. Give her kisses.
Aww.
Give her kisses.
Clinic is where therapists come on the team together, as well as the supervisors and the parents and the child. And it's a great way to talk about his progress, and if parents have concerns about the programs that we're doing or problem behaviors that come up. It's just a great way for us to have communication with each other and be on the same page so we're consistent with everybody that's involved, parents, therapists, and supervisors. Oh, you found it. What is that?
Oh no.
What is it? Tar, yeah.
The guitar.
So we're having him demand for things, meaning we're having him request for things, and if he knows the label, we're having him say the label. So, I mean, approximations are okay, but as long as he's asking us for something, instead of having us just give it to him, so that requires him to talk even more. Which book do you want? Which one? Mickey book? Whoa! Do you want the Mickey book or the Thomas book? Which one? Jack Riley? No. Hey, kiddo, which one? Thomas book or Mickey book? No. Which one, Jack Riley? No. Do you want the guitar? Guitar? Yeah? Okay. Alright. That's okay. Here. Look. Look. We're gonna show Suzanne that you know what a car is. Okay? Here. Touch car. Good. What is it? It's car. Okay, what is it? Good job. Good job, kiddo. Gotta look better though, okay? Let's sit up and look at it. There we go. Wow, you gonna show Suzanne the car?
Vroom, vroom.
Touch car. Good. What is it? What is it? Say car. Good. What is it? Good job. Oh, that's Suzanne. Hi. Hold on.
Oh, you want to see? You can't see yourself. You got to be on the other side, silly.
Woohoo! See? Do you see yourself? Wow.
Oh.
Really? He's doing a lot of talking by himself. No way. I know. He wants to have a conversation so badly today.
I know.
I know. You got a lot to say today. How else do you feel? Huh? How else do you feel today? Do you feel happy? Touch car. Good job. What is it? Car. Very good. Say, look, Dad, I did it. I did it.
Good job.
No?
What are you calling that? If you say touch the thing in your hand.
Oh, what we're doing is we're having one of the objects is one of the labels that we want, which is car, which is what we're working on, and we have a distractor. So we want to see the object that we're focusing on with something else to see if he actually can discriminate between the two. So I mean, so our goal is just to see if he can pick the right object, basically. Touch. Hold on. Touch. Hold on. Hold on. Wait a minute. Okay. Ready? Okay. Touch car. No, try again. Try again, okay? Okay. Last one. Watch your car. Good. What is it? Ugh. What is this? What is this? Yes, car. Okay. Someone helping him to stop? Okay. Yeah. Hi.
That's the first time I've seen him really say hi. Well, he's very interested in
Did you just say hi?
He just looked at her and said hi.
He did.
And he looked at the camera and he waved.
No, he doesn't. That's seriously.
I've never seen him say hi to anybody, that's like the first thing we wanted to say to our families and stuff. Is to say hi. He says bye bye.
Okay, come on, buddy.
Let's go. Go, Dad.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Shannon and Nancy is on her way here. I'm sure we can all appreciate that Nancy's got some extra things to deal with right now, and she will be joining us, but we all appreciate what she's going through and the fact that she's even making an effort to be here. I wanted to start out this morning with a couple of news stories, and when Nancy gets here, we'll take a break and we'll have her join me, but we are so devastated to hear the news about an individual on the autism spectrum that has a YouTuber, honestly, who had a video that we have shared before on the show. I believe we shared it on Matt Asner's show, On the Spectrum with Matt Asner. It showed a young adult with their dog calming them down after having a meltdown. The legal name for that person is Danielle Jacobs. And what we didn't know at the time that we shared that video was that Danielle was in the process of transitioning and was by her friends known as Caden Clark. And Caden was having a great deal of difficulty. Like, it's not enough to be dealing with autism, but to be dealing with all the things that happen when you're transgender and transitioning. And I understand that Caden was having a lot of emotions that came with that. There was a phone call made to the Phoenix police on Thursday. Their understanding was that it was a person who was in great distress and they thought suicidal. I don't know whether that's the truth or not. None of us does, but the police came to the home. Caden had a knife and was standing with a knife and was in great distress. One of the police officers had been trained in crisis management, but none of the police officers had been trained how to deal with a person who is on the autism spectrum. Unfortunately, it all went south. One of the police officers went back to the car to get a device that would not have permanently injured Caden. While that police officer was gone, Caden lunged with the knife at the police officers, and the police officers, both of them, fired, and Caden was killed. We're devastated to hear this news. I know that it brings up a lot of fear and anger in all of us about the fact that we have not been able to get to the point where our police are trained on how to behave in circumstances so that we don't have loss of life. I know that the Autism Society of Greater Phoenix is lobbying very hard now on behalf of Caden's friends, and Caden's family to say, let's let this stop here. It would have been nice if it had stopped before that, but let's let this stop here. Can we please train our police? We happen to know here at Autism Live of a great program for both police and individuals who are on the autism spectrum to be trained to know what to do when the police are there, because I honestly think that the only way that we can successfully move forward is to get training on both sides. Emily Island, our dear friend, has a whole program. There's a curriculum, a video. It's called Be Safe, the Movie, and she travels the country and does presentations in different places. It's very cost effective. You can, if you're a family at home watching this, you can order the video. I've watched it with my son. There are things in it that wouldn't occur to you. It's so well thought out. By the way, it is all the participants in it that play individuals who are on the autism spectrum are actually on the autism spectrum, and the entire crew was led by Joey Travolta, individuals with special needs who filmed it. So you're supporting employment when you participate in Be Safe the movie. Either get it for yourself or order it for your community and have Emily come and do a training and a screening. I promise you, you will be glad that you did. So sorry to hear about this horrible end for Caden. On a happier note, because we always like to balance, something sad with something really wonderful, I'm sure a lot of you saw in the news this week that Taylor Swift donated $10,000 to help a boy who's on the autism spectrum to get his therapy dog. We see fundraisers all the time and sometimes we feature them here on the show, for individuals who have decided they want to get a therapy dog. We've seen the benefits of them. I mean, certainly we saw that in Caden's case, how well it helped him to calm down in a meltdown. Taylor Swift saw the siblings of the boy rewrote one of her songs, the song Blank Space, put different words to it, for the fundraiser that they were doing for the dog. Taylor Swift saw that and promptly sent a $10,000 check. She gets the Autism Mensch Award for the week. Way to go, Taylor. I know that she's very involved with her fans, and here's just another example. Money well spent. What that dog will do with this young man over a lifetime will be amazing. I understand that Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson is in the building, so we're going to take a break, and we'll be back with more Let's Talk Autism after these messages.
What would you do if your child was hurting?
If your family's future was uncertain.
If help seemed out of reach.
Have you been given no hope?
Taka means I am not alone in this.
This is the reality for families affected by autism. And today, the number of children with autism is growing more rapidly than ever. Taka unites these families and shows that they do not have to fight this battle alone.
Our oldest son, Jared, who has autism, when we first took him to the doctor to get the diagnosis, it's so sad because they offer you nothing. There's no help, there's no hope.
One of the things that you learn with autism is being very grateful for even the small milestones. When you first get the diagnosis, you go through all the range of emotions. This can't be happening. Why is this happening? You have to get to a point where it's the emotion that has to be leading is, what can I do? The first thing that struck me was walking to a room and seeing, oh my gosh, we're not alone. And there is this very strong community that's already set. And something I still today associate with Taka the most is hope. To me, that's what Taka means. Taka means hope.
It's like you've got all these dreams and goals of what your son's going to do, and you get your diagnosis and you're sent home. And that's it. There's no plan of action. There's no, here's autism, here's what we're going to do to make your life better and help him. It's strictly go home and try to process it and go on the internet. It was devastating, and you just, you go through this 3-week of depression, and then you snap out of it. You have to. And then you start making phone calls and trying to figure out what is autism and what are we going to do. And then we found Taka, and it was life-changing.
Autism, there really is no definitive answer. It is trying to find the resources that are out there that can assist you to help your child so that, you just don't feel so helpless at those particular moments.
There was direction, and there was hope, and there was a little ray of sunshine that he's going to be okay, and we're going to be okay. I always look back and think we would never be where we are. Carson wouldn't be where he is at without Taka.
So 13 years ago, my son was diagnosed with autism, and that put our whole family into a tailspin. There were so many different ideas and things that were not proven. Nobody knew what guidance to give us. We had no direction. And then we found Taka. They helped give us a path to follow, help give our son a better future and make him healthy and put him back onto the road of recovery. When your son's first diagnosed, the first thing you hope for is, gosh, I just want my son to speak. I just want to be able to communicate with him in some way. Then you want a little more. You want him to go to a regular school. Then you want him to potentially have a real life and go to college. So you're always hoping for the future of your child. My son is a happy, healthy, vibrant young boy that's going to turn 15 really soon, and we couldn't be more pleased, and without Taka, I don't think we'd be in the place that we are today. We believe the future is not defined for many affected by autism. There is hope and direction for these kids and their families. Taka is dedicated to providing community, support, education, and hope to families affected by autism.
At Taka?
At Taka.
At Taka,
We are families with autism helping.
Helping.
Helping families.
helping families with autism.
Hi, my name is Matt. I am 19 years old and I was diagnosed with autism when I was 6 years old. Autism is one of the fastest growing developmental disabilities in the United States, but I am living proof that with the right treatment, hope is possible. My future is not limited. Today, I am attending Fullerton Community College and I run for the cross-country team for fun with my friends. It makes me feel proud when I think about my progress. Chances are you know someone affected by autism. Show them they are not alone and help others get on the road to recovery. Contribute to Talk About Curing Autism today.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. I'm here.
Yes, you are here, and you
Yeah.
look like you've been smacked.
I know, and you know
So
what?
we'll cover that.
It's kind of hard not to do your hair and then smear the ashes more. It kind of looks to me like I put my eyeshadow on really badly this morning.
I thought you just had been hit.
This is Ash Wednesday, and all Catholics observe it. I go to an Episcopalian church, and last year I dispensed ashes to go because I'm a lay minister, and we do it in Los Angeles on the corner of a very busy intersection, Topanga Boulevard and Ventura Boulevard, because there are just many working people that can't get to a 6:30 a.m. service or a 12 noon service or a 5 service. And so this year I just did a drive-by ashing.
I wanted a picture of you last year standing in the middle of a street corner putting ashes on people's forehead as they walk by.
I sent Kelby, I don't know if he got it yet, an email of me at our little, Kelby, did you get that?
He has been juggling alligators
you know
this
what?
morning. So
He
poor
always
Kelby.
does. But
He
he'll
does.
he'll
He
show
does
it in a
have
minute.
it.
There I
It is
am.
there.
There I am. Ashes to go. And you know, somebody, one man said to me, "Thank you, sister. You're so young and pretty to be a nun."
And there we have it.
Okay. So anyway,
we got a great show for you today. And
we
I
do.
mentioned,
Speaking of inspirations and God shots, we've got our friend Vena Thiero here, who is just an amazing woman.
Yeah.
And mother of 2 sons on the spectrum, and she's going to...
And compulsively honest. This is what I always say about Vena, that she's compulsively honest. Vena does not know how to be, dissemble. You know how people try to make it look like, it's all this. Vena is compulsively
tells it like it
honest.
is,
She tells
Dave.
it like it is. Boy, you're going to get the real deal from Vena.
And she's a documentarian, and she's just spectacular. And so we're looking forward to that. And she's kicking off our series of Autism Family Portraits.
Yes.
And we are focusing on thriving with autism despite the challenges, and whether your child is recovered, on the road to recovery, or will not be, quote, recovered. But as we know, every child, every adult on the spectrum can have improvements. So we're going to be launching this series today. It's a perfect time, I think, to launch it. Valentine's Day coming up, and it truly shows unconditional love. So we have a few more news stories.
Yeah, we had a couple more news stories. I always like to balance the bad with the good, right? Or the potential good. So horrible story that came out over the weekend, a murder-suicide of a dad who strangled both his wife and his son, who's on the autism spectrum, before killing himself. Absolutely devastating. And I know that this will kick off a firestorm of people having conversations. I can't imagine what was going on in his mind.
Well, I think we can see a couple of things that were going on.
Yeah.
He had recently lost his job. He was a father of 2, and he had an 18-year-old autistic son. Now, once again, I'm not condoning any of this, but
Right.
for us to not have empathy, and let me tell you, it's very fresh. My husband passed away 2 weeks ago. And having a child with autism and all the financial, because we had lost most of our money. And when you have to deal with the stress, and men are oftentimes defined by their jobs. That's what defines them. So I can only imagine with the desperation of this father after losing his job and maybe feeling the world was crashing in. We wish he had reached for help. It's a tragedy. It shouldn't happen. But I think for me, it's there, but for the grace of God, go I.
Well, and my take on it is slightly different, that I think, we're talking about a mental health issue. I think when people do these kinds of things, it's a mental health issue. I am sure that it's complicated by the fact that they have these extra things, but every day people go and ask for help when they can. Every day, people face, look at you. You're facing all the things that you have to face.
I couldn't do it without people like you, Shannon, and my
Absolutely.
friends. And I have a huge support base. Some people don't. Some people don't.
Some people don't. But it's interesting to me. I used to be on that same page, and now that my son is a little bit older, and we talked about this morning, it's so important to me from a civil rights issue to look at the value of the lives of our kiddos that are on the autism spectrum, and to not have a blurred line of that there's any justification for this.
I'm not saying there's any justification.
I know
you know
you're
that.
not.
You know that I believe
that.
suicide, and particularly taking the life of your family members and yourself, is horrific and should never be condoned. However, I am also looking at the circumstances that, at ACT Today, we get the applications every day from families that are on the edge, on the brink.
Absolutely.
On the brink.
Absolutely.
And a lot of them don't want to leave. They don't want to do it to themselves because they don't want to leave their child to somebody, and they're not getting help, and they're not getting services, and they're not getting insurance, and that has to change.
Absolutely.
The situation has to change.
Absolutely. We're
Okay.
absolutely
All
in agreement
right.
about that. Now, on the plus side of things, the White House budget has come out, and we want to draw particular attention to, there's one section of the White House budget, and I have it here in my email. It includes up to $15 million for competitive grants for early identification of and intervention for developmental delays and disabilities with a potential focus on autism. It's intended to help identify, develop, and scale up evidence-based practices. Now, this is in the White House budget this year, and what was pointed out to me, somebody said, we are all too quick as a community when somebody does something to say, well, it isn't this. And that we might be shooting ourselves in the foot when we do that, that we know, all those of us who've done ABA, that one of the quickest ways to learn and grow is to offer a reward for behavior, and we shape behavior up. So this was included. It's the biggest that's ever been included in the budget. I know it's not as much as we'd all love to see.
Yeah, 15 million. I know. I'm going to try and be positive and say, thankfully that they're putting some attention to it, but 15 million is butt kiss. Sorry.
Okay, but so if we say, right, if we write that or say nothing, then why is anybody ever going to do anything?
You're right.
For
They're
us?
not going to. They're going to thank those ungrateful
so
parents.
This is an opportunity for you to send an email and say, dear President Obama, thank you for including autism. This means so much to me because, and I know that you put in, because this 15 million is going to get whittled down to 3. Right? But if we all register and say, this is why this 15 million is so important.
So where do they write?
That's a good question. You can write, I'll find that out.
Okay.
Because somebody asked us to do this. I'll find out, I'll report back to you. But you can put it on Facebook and say, Thank you.
Okay.
And hashtag President
POTUS.
Obama. POTUS.
Okay, well, I just, I want to say that I find the national attention to this problem woefully inadequate, woefully. And I find that it actually shocks me because are the official numbers 1 in 42 now or 1 in 46?
1 in 46.
Okay.
But we think new numbers are coming out next
I know.
month.
I don't get how anybody running for president can acknowledge that 1 in 46 children are on the spectrum, and then you have to multiply that exponentially of who are the parents, the siblings, the loved ones. What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for to come up with a plan?
And I agree with you, but you know me, I'm like, what's our part in it? And as a community, we have to get together and say, we're a voting bloc. We're a group of people and we have a vote. Pay attention
We
to
do, and we
us.
should all band together. Blessed are the peacemakers.
That's right. But we tend to, in the past, when politicians have come 2 years ago,
We criticize.
We criticized.
And we
2 years ago, when President Obama, in the State of the State, for the first time, said the word autistic, a bunch of people wrote and said, "You fool! It's
Oh,
not
I know.
autistic anymore. It has autism."
Yeah, we need
right?
to throw the politically correct stuff out the window.
We need to praise and shape up the behavior.
Okay, I think you're
That's
so
my
right,
opinion.
Shannon. I do agree with you, but I guess
And
I
I
just
agree
get
with you,
angry
I do too. I
about
get
the lack.
frustrated too.
Now, Hillary Clinton has come up with, just so everybody is aware, is the only candidate that has come up with a comprehensive 4-point plan, not just addressing early awareness and diagnostics, but addressing employment, adults, and housing, and so many different things. So everybody should just be aware of that.
And
Hillary
we want to praise
Clinton
her for
has
that.
a plan.
We want to praise her for that.
That's
for
not
being
an endorsement,
forward-thinking.
it's a
No,
fact.
not, but we want to praise her for that, and we want to say to the rest of the candidates, where is your plan? We have praise ready for you if you come up with a
Yeah,
plan.
Bernie, come on. Donald, let's hear it.
Absolutely.
Rubio, Kasich,
know,
come on.
Christy,
we want to hear it.
Yeah, we want to hear
Okay.
it. Okay, we have a great guest though. It's gonna be fun. You can tell it's fireworks today, and Vana brings her own fireworks. So
Of course she
Vana
does.
Tiero is going to be with us. Stick with us, and you're going to hear from this amazing mom. We'll be right back.
Hi everyone, welcome back. For the month of February, I thought it'd be a great idea to work on an activity that would help your kiddos identify and label emotions. And to help me out today is my good friend, Jamie.
Hey, Suzanne.
Hey there, Jamie.
Hey, how can I help?
Well, the way you can help me out is that because you're a sock puppet, you can do things with your face that I cannot do.
No way.
Totally. The way you can do it is that, you have interchangeable features, which means you can make super exaggerated faces, which makes it easier for kiddos to identify them and to label them.
Uh-huh.
Hey, I have a favor to ask you.
Yeah?
Can you help us out and show us some of your faces you can make?
Of course. Here we go.
Ooh, you look super mad.
I was super mad.
Can you show us another one?
Sure.
Ooh, you look super sad.
I was super sad.
All right, can you show us one more?
One more.
All right. You look super excited.
I was super excited.
I am too. You know why? Because I really want to show everyone how to make a little buddy like you. So
Hey.
let's get started.
The materials you'll be needing are googly eyes, felt, a hot glue gun, imagination, scissors, Velcro, some heavy cardstock, and a clean sock.
All right, let's get to it. So the first thing you want to do is you're going to grab your sock. Hopefully it's not dirty and used. It's a clean one. And what you're going to do is that you're going to take your sock, fold it in half like so, and then you're going to take your scissors and cut down. The reason we're doing this is that we're going to make an area for the mouth. The next thing you want to do is you want to trim the inside a little bit, because if you don't, it's going to have an overbite. So I'm just going to take my scissors and just trim a little bit off, not much. Now that this guy is ready, I'm gonna take a hard cardstock or note card or whatever you have that's a piece of paper. I'm gonna fold it in half. And what I'm gonna do with this is gonna be the inside of its mouth, the kind of reinforcement so you're able to move its mouth around. So I'm gonna just cut it into an oval. And don't worry, if it's a little too big, you can always trim it. With this sock puppet project, the materials we'll be using, like the hot glue, is not something for children. So this is something you're gonna be doing by yourself and then asking your child to join in once the puppet is ready to go. All right, now that I got that out of the way, let's start gluing. I'm gonna take my hot glue gun and I'm going to glue it on the paper. Okay, once I have that, I'm gonna put that in the inside of its mouth, and then I'm gonna take the sock and then pull it over the edge and cover it with the glue. All right, so now that I have the bottom part done, I'm gonna do the same thing to the top. So now that we have this part assembled, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a piece of felt and we're gonna cover this area so you don't see all the scraggly stuff. So I have my piece of felt right here. I'm gonna fold it in half and I'm just gonna cut out a similar oval shape. And again, don't worry, if it's too big, you can always trim it after we glue it on. I'm gonna glue it inside. All right, now we got pretty much the base of the sock puppet. He's got a moving mouth, but wait, he's got no features. We gotta help him out with that. So what I'm gonna do is I have these pieces of Velcro that I bought that are already sticky on the back, which makes my life a lot easier. And I'm gonna peel this off and place it where I want his eyes. So one there and one there. And then I'm also gonna put them also along his mouth. And then if you want to get fancy, you can put some for his eyebrows as well. So now that I have this, we should be making some features for him. I'm alive! Alive! I had a great time with my buddy Jamie, and I hope you did too. Until next time, bye.
Bye. And don't forget to send us your photos at facebook.com/autism-live.
Can you see me? Can you see me flying by your side?
Waterproof mascara.
Welcome back. We're very excited today. Things are interesting today. And we love interesting.
Yeah. You know, my joke is to everybody, how are you doing? Because, you know, my love of my life passed away 2 weeks ago, my husband of 24 years. And my thing is God, Xanax, and waterproof mascara.
Yeah. and those things together. And
yeah, because I wouldn't be sitting right here right now. I wake up in the morning, I'm a puddle of tears. Just so you know, in case you think, wow, how can she hold it together? I don't.
There we go. And having said that, we have a wonderful guest here in the room. How about that for a segue?
And I love her.
But we talked before about, I don't know if you heard, we said that you are somebody who is just impeccably honest, that you keep it real all the time. You know, there is no dissembling with you. And so I'm glad that Nancy decided not to dissemble to welcome you. So Vena.
Yes, because we'd all be dissembled because I don't hold it together either. I just, you know, you get it out and then you go on.
Right.
Well, and that's life. It's real and it's
right. And first of all, you're kicking off this series of Autism Family Portraits of Thriving Autism Families.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to know just the basics because we know so much about you, but please tell our viewers how autism came to be in your life.
Well, through my children. I have 2 boys on the spectrum. My oldest now is 19. My youngest is 17. The youngest is considered nonverbal and a handful. So when they were young, the first one was PDD-NOS, and we fought to find out truly what the deal was. He was diagnosed in the spectrum, and during that process, the other guy somehow, who hit all his benchmarks, ended up in the spectrum as well and more severe. And that's how we came to be part of this wonderful, awesome population of empowered parents.
And all of that part of the journey is chronicled in your documentary film,
Yes.
My Tierra Boys. Am I saying your last
Yes,
name right?
My Tierra Boys, A Lifestyle Dealing with Autism.
Yeah.
That's the first of 5. The second, My Tierra Boys, Believing in Miracles in Spite of Autism, will be available early 2017.
And let's say right now where people can access your website and find out more about the film.
MyTierraBoys.com. MyTierraBoys.com.
And it's an amazing film. I will say, both Nancy and I have had the pleasure to watch it, and it
And
brings
we
you to
actually
your
ran a
knees.
panel where at
Yeah.
the premiere,
It's-
and I'm in
And
it.
Nancy's
Yes.
in the film.
Yeah, along
Yes.
with Areva Martin.
Yes,
Right.
and Dr. Bob Sears, the
Right.
author of the autism book. Yes.
And it brings you to your knees. Both, the joy and the low points, because you don't hold anything back.
And that brings to mind, our highs and our lows. In the first film, we showed the behaviors of my youngest son, Bakari, and how our family band together and decided if it got too bad, we knew we may have to put him in a group home. And in the first film, we had other families who I'm close with. Like, we're close, we parents stick together because we tend to live an isolated life, and it's painful. We think we're the only ones, but then we get in support groups and we go to conferences and we bond, and every now and then we'll, share a bottle of wine, and then we're able to connect. Well, I have some other friends like that who have children who they have put them in a group home, and so I had a young woman who felt she had a positive experience in a group home, Courtney DeBarge, and she just told her story in the documentary. So talking with her and my other girlfriend who had a son who had extreme behaviors, it's their experiences that helped me be strong when it was time to place my son in a group home, which we did this past August.
Just recently. Now, tell us about. We're going to get to, I think we wanted to ask you about the hardest things and the greatest blessings, but I think that should be later. Tell us about Carter and Bakari. I have to say, my son, Wyatt, is so crazy about these 2 boys, and Vena brings the boys to the ministry that I run at my church, Prince of Peace Episcopal in Woodland
Exceptional
Hills.
families. Just
Exceptional
so you know,
families.
if you're in the Los Angeles area, every 3rd Saturday at Prince of Peace Church
Episcopal.
in Woodland Hills, come. I mean, we live for that Saturday. You walk in as a parent with other parents. We've been through, what our weeks are like. And we get in there and the church is already peaceful. The Lord is there. You just relax, and we're together, and our
we
kids
sing, and our kids dance, and they
our
run
kids
around.
do what they do.
They do what they do.
And nobody cares because it's all us.
Wyatt always says, Mommy, why does Bakari go, yeah, 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 can I do it? And he'll start jumping up and down and going, yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's so
But
nice.
We even have a picture of all your boys together.
I don't know
we
whether
were there.
Right.
Kelby, can you
the
find
one
that?
at church with the cross? Yeah.
Yes, and then there's also one of Wyatt.
Yes.
One of my favorite pictures ever taken of my son. I was at your house, and we were having dinner.
Yes.
And I looked over, and there are your 2 beautiful boys who really, these 2 young men looked like.
Well, we're showing Wyatt and Bakari right now.
Oh, look at Wyatt and Bakari down there, honey.
Oh, yes.
These 2 boys are so beautiful. And then I looked around, and Carter and Bakari and Wyatt were hugging each other.
Yes.
And I remember looking back at you and saying, and they think our kids are screwed up. Why can't the world be more like them? They don't see color.
They don't.
They don't see background. They don't see anything.
They don't see disability.
And you know what I find phenomenal about them? They can go through something horrific and let it go.
Yeah.
They let it go and get right back to the love.
Right.
Yeah.
So tell us about Carter and Bakari. So let's start with Carter.
Well, Carter right now is in community college. And I want you guys to know that He was in an 8 o'clock class. He chose himself to go to the library after each class. He chose himself to get a tutor. Of course, I'm prodding, but he went through with it and made it happen. He studied. Now, 8 o'clock class, college, who comes and shows up to an 8 o'clock class? He learned by fear, thinking that his teacher was in trouble because the kids were mad about the class and dropped out. I said, babe, they're staying up all night. They don't care. They're not coming. They aren't studying like you. They're dropping out. My son aced that class. Nice. A young man in the spectrum who was serious about his education.
And I have to say, he met my son last week for a movie, Wyatt and his caregiver, Andrea.
Yes.
And he texted me, the bus is running late, Nancy. I just want you to let you know I'm coming. Oh, I caught the bus. I will be there. I don't think I've ever encountered a more responsible young man. And he is absolutely handsome, so gentle. He's such a reflection of you.
Oh, thank you. I think he's a reflection of the Lord because that's who I give my kids to every day, and that's who I depend on. I don't take the credit, but just his behavior comes from the Lord impacting upon me when they were young. Prepare them for independence. When he was 12 and 13, they went to the help group, and the help group has CBI, community activities to get them on the bus and get them used to riding the bus. I gave them wallets early. I had them do financial transactions early. I taught him how to use a phone early. Even Bakari, my nonverbal son, financial transactions. He doesn't get change that much, but the more they do it, the more they get it. He learned how to walk to the store, my nonverbal son. So this independence is something that we, through faith, we have to believe first. And then we have to get our children ready for this because they don't stay our little cute little cuddlies all their lives.
No,
they grow up.
They grow up.
And like the tragedy you reported earlier in this show today, unless we prepare them for handling situations with the police, and that's something I did very early on. And we've had some encounters that weren't very pretty, but I talked to Carter later. He said, Mom, I did what you said. I talked nicely. I had a smile. I was respectful. I said, yes, sir. So we have to prepare our children for all types of ways they will encounter the world.
Let's talk about Bakari for a minute, and we're going to take a quick break and come back to hear more about just the toughest times, because you went through some tough times, my friend.
Yeah. Well, we had some great times.
All right,
too.
but
We're gonna talk about that. But tell us about
Tell us about Bakari.
Bakari. Well, we talk about behaviors, and that's our nice little sugar-coated term, behaviors. I got really pounded one day. And it wasn't just the one day. It had happened over a series of years. And when they're little, you learn ways of wrangling them. And I could grab his arms and wrap him around, you know, kind of like this, and I'd have him and I could march him off. It would happen in the grocery store. It even happened at an Autism Speaks walk. And I'm thinking, maybe these people could help me. They were looking at me like I was crazy too. It's like, I'm like, hey, I'm on my own up in here.
Oh, that's your heart.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. And so, and you know,
I remember at the baseball games, because you brought Bakari to special needs baseball.
And you never know what's going to tick him off.
No,
he was
but the
fine.
coaches would try to help you, but you would say,
and
no,
I
let
told
me
them
do it.
back off
Right.
because he'll hit you,
Right.
and they weren't prepared.
No.
So anyway, this horrific event occurred, and I don't know. I had for a year, because he's as tall as me now, he had gotten bigger. I couldn't wrangle him. These two muscles had torn. So my strength, I always thought, I'm going to always be able to outrun him. I will knock him out. I'm going to be that mother. I'm going to be that mother.
Nobody's going to mess with you, right?
Yeah,
At
that's
least
what
along
I
your
thought.
chin. Right.
You know, that's what I prepared for, but I didn't realize. I didn't have the strength. I had a couple things in my hand, and then we're in public. I'm not going to be out there fighting my kid.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And emotionally, I couldn't.
Yeah.
I wanted to, because I wanted to defend myself. He wasn't a stranger.
Right.
He was my baby, and I couldn't figure it out. I mean, I ducked. I missed a few. But you know how they say you see stars and you hear a ringing? I saw the stars. I had the ringing.
Wow. And so what did you do?
I don't know what I did.
But
I
you
think
got
I
home
started
and you
talking out loud to him, and his face changed.
Okay.
So I think I might have said, it's done, babe. You're going to have to move away, because he stopped and he looked at me, and I got him to the car, and I turned around and he was in the back seat. I said, you know, I've always said when you get to, because he understands. They understand. Don't you ever doubt it.
Yeah.
They understand. I said, you know, when you get to a point where we can't handle what you're doing, you're going to have to live with someone else, sweetie. So I'm going to make the call. So I called the regional center, and he, on speaker, so he could listen to the entire conversation. I left a voicemail with our coordinator, and later that night she got together with me, and praise God, she's a person with her ear to the ground in terms of placement. And she was in touch with the ABA therapist in the Antelope Valley who knew good homes. And praise God, my son's in a beautiful home with wonderful people, all ABA based and trained, and he's really very, very content.
I've seen him since he's been there. You brought him to the ministry one night, and I saw
Yes.
marked improvements.
Marked.
Wyatt wants to go visit him. He's a little disturbed that Bakari's not with you and Carter.
And when he goes, then he'll understand.
Yeah.
And I've been told to look at it as if he's in boarding school.
Right.
Yeah.
Because he is. And that's another thing. We parents have to get prepared to detach. If we don't get prepared to detach, how can we help them be prepared to detach? And this was forced on me before I knew it. Now I'm looking forward to Carter getting his own apartment.
Well, that's
I mean,
not gonna
I'm
be
a
an
single
issue.
mom with emphasis on single. I'm ready.
Okay, you hear us out there?
And I just want to say, I think one of the most important things you said was that you had the strength to make the decision. And I think, you know, that's the thing to be applauded, is that I think a lot of people are in a lot of denial about, I should be able to handle this and I should be able to handle it on my own. And it's not a weak thing to say no, it's a strong thing to say I
It's a
cannot.
strong thing, but it was posed to me, what if I had done it sooner? Now, I waited for the major crisis in order to do it. Why couldn't I have been stronger, in fact, and done it when he was younger and given him these tools of coping in an environment that was controlled?
Because but number one, I mean, I'm
Because of
assuming
what Shannon said, I
we
think
are-
I should
we are
handle
taught
it.
that as parents we should do
Yeah.
that. We're selling our kids out and we're doing the worst possible
So
thing
I
in the
want
world.
to
We
encourage
put them in a
parents
temporary.
who
I
are
agree
going
with you.
who are going through this. Don't wait like I did till the major crisis forces your hand. Do it early. If you see you've got a kid with major behaviors and they're wreaking physical action on things and people and others, you know, yeah, you get through it, and yeah, there's good times, and then bam, it pops up again. Consider making that transition early and getting them trained. It's a training.
Thank you for that message. You know, we have another person from our ministry, I certainly won't name names, that just had to place their 28-year-old son. And I just said, I want to commend you for your strength, because I had gotten calls
Absolutely.
from her with him getting violent, and she had
Yes.
to lock herself in rooms
And-
and things like that.
and
That's
they're
time.
in a-
You need a bigger intervention. You
And
need
they're
more
at
help.
an age as parents where it's time for them to have some time together.
Time to breathe.
Some time to breathe. I mean, when he was in the group home, we finally took locks off of things. I finally invested in decent furniture because I knew it
And
wouldn't
now
get
you
torn
don't have
up.
to go through how many rolls of toilet paper.
Oh my God!
a
We
week.
have magazines on the coffee table because they won't be ripped up.
Yeah,
you
he
know,
used to
we
rip
can
the
leave
toilet
mail
paper.
out. I
Yeah.
mean, we've
Yeah.
had.
And he is happier.
He seems, I will use the term content.
Okay.
He does not seem like he doesn't like it. When we leave, he's happy to be
See,
there.
there you go.
So, and he has a yard, he has a huge house. I am not able to provide that for him living in the Los Angeles area economy as a
Right,
single
no
mom.
kidding.
And he has a trampoline in the backyard. He has roommates, young men like him.
And you're still active in his life. This
Absolutely.
This is not that he is
I'm
gone
going
away
to
and out
see
of your
him
mind.
today,
Yes.
and we're going to have a great time.
There you go.
Yeah, and for the first time, we brought him home for Christmas.
Yeah.
Now, this is the other painful thing. It's hard now that we've had this freedom to have him around. So we're working on that transition, projecting down the road a few years how we're going to do that.
Yeah.
I'm not on IFB. Do we need to take a quick break
We should
before
take a
we
quick
follow
break.
up?
Yeah,
Because there are a
let's
couple of
take a
very
quick break.
important questions for
Yeah,
Vena.
let's take a quick break, and then
Okay.
we're going to be back more with Vena Tiero. Stick with us.
Hello, fellow activists. In our last segment, we talked about step number 2, educate yourself. Step number 3 is get support. Now, any journey can feel overwhelming if you feel like you're walking it alone. Well, you're far from alone, because with 1 in 50 kids diagnosed with autism today, there are a lot of us out there. Of course, there's always the issue of financial support. Now, there's a handful of organizations out there that offer financial support to families in need. ACT Today, or Autism Care and Treatment Today, is one of them. Visit our website at www.act-today.org to find out more about our grant process. I want to talk about a different kind of support today, emotional support. Now, you can get that from other travelers on this path. Some of the best advice I've ever received is from the moms of other kids with autism who went to school with Wyatt or were involved with programs with him. Then there are the pioneers. These are the families that have gone through this years ago, and there was very little information out there. All of these people seem to have the desire to pay it forward. Now, one of them, Lisa Ackerman, who is one of my mentors, started an organization called TACA, Talk About Curing Autism. She actually took the concept of mentors and support groups and made it available to everybody. You can go to their website, talkaboutcuringautism.org, to find out more. During the first and most difficult year after Wyatt's diagnosis, I wrote an email to close family and friends, letting them know what was going on and the challenges our family was facing, and why we dropped out of sight. I was amazed at the outpouring of love and affection and all the help I received from that email. First, you have to be vulnerable. You can't be afraid to ask. Try this out. Could you cook me a meal? Are you going to the market? Can you pick me up a few things? Could your kids play with my kid and make them feel included? Or can you come over and clean my house? Well, maybe not that last one, except with your best friend. And maybe the best support of all is having someone that listens, and that doesn't cost a dime. So until next time, surround yourself with the loving kindness of others and keep the faith.
Welcome back. We're having such a tea party here.
Yeah, because we're talking about my ashes, and I'm trying to talk them into go get ashes to go, and they're like, no way. We're not having black spots on our head.
I'm not.
No,
If I was wearing black, it would match.
Oh, Vena.
The Lord is in my heart forever.
Keeping it real. Keeping it real. In any case, we're here and talking with Vena Tiero. She is the amazing filmmaker behind My Tiero Boys, a 5-part documentary series. The first part you should definitely check out. In fact, you should, in your communities, have Vena come and do a screening and speak while she's there. That's really what you want to do.
You hear how eloquent she is on this and what she's been through.
And the film is just beautiful and devastating and real and honest. It's lovely. Go to mytieroboys.com and so you can connect with Vena that way. We've been talking with her about her journey, 2 boys on the spectrum, a single mom with 2 boys on the spectrum. And Nancy and I wanted to know from you, you've done different things. What do you think, what therapies have you done that have really done the most for either or both of the boys?
Well, definitely ABA. And we had an in-home ABA therapist, fortunately funded by the regional center, so everybody needs that. Everybody needs in-home ABA. It trains the parent, it trains everyone involved with the child, the caregivers, and all of that. The second for Carter that unlocked everything for him was social skills. Him learning to say, hi, my name is Carter, what's yours? He became the Mr. United Nations on the playground, on the monkey bars, and hi, my name is, he always had friends, and that has stuck with him to this day. He learned how to make phone calls, he went on outings to learn how to communicate in group settings, social skills. And for Bakari, now it's augmentative communication. There are different forms of it. There's rapid prompting method, from the HALO program SOMA created. And then there's just general with assistive technology and helping people learn how to point to spell, because their communication when they're nonverbal, their voice is through the written word. And now that we have iPads and technical devices that can speak what they're writing, that's imperative. And I am, it's not, unfortunately, augmentative communication, alternative augmentative communication, they call it AAC, currently is not evidence-based. This has been therapy that has come up through the grassroots by people who are working hard to teach people to do it. And those who can afford, at usually like $156 an hour, have been able to get this for their children. And this is the only method that has allowed nonverbal individuals to participate in age-appropriate academic education in schools. Ido Kedar, you have to get his book.
Why I Jump.
Yes, actually.
No, that was the other one.
Yeah.
The other young man. I know.
We'll
Ido
come up with
Kedar.
it.
Yeah,
We'll
we'll come
have
up
a
with
space
it.
Ido Kedar, yes. Anyway, he talks about how he had to fight to prove that he was actually communicating. He started with SOMA, then he moved on and had aides in his classroom. Praise God, his family was able to do this for him to show the rest of us that there is a way. And then we have the wonderful Carly Fleischman.
Yes.
She's our, those two, they're our rock stars. They do not speak verbally, but they can have a conversation on any level. And
So important. What would you like to see, since this is not, what would you like to see happen in terms of making this accessible to parents that don't have
I
money?
have a bill proposal, the nonverbal communication mandate bill proposal, which was not able to make it this year. I would like to see research done at this current stage at HALO and at Dynamic Therapy Solutions and these other agencies that are actually empowering our young nonverbal students to participate in age-appropriate academic work. I would like to see that documented in their studies so that we can have it implemented
and have it funded
in all schools on an education basis. We should be able to request, like we do occupational therapy, speech therapy in an IEP, that there is a one-on-one, because without a one-on-one who's helping them with their work until they're able to truly get control. And then we need parent training, because my son does it, but am I getting the tools to help him at home? So that's key.
All right, eloquently well said. Okay,
Ido
I have
in Autism Land, climbing out of autism
There it
silent
is.
prison.
There it is.
There we go.
Ido in Autism Land. I have a question for you.
I want to add, when I got that book, Ido signed it for me, and his mom, Tracy. You guys got to have them on here.
Okay.
Yeah,
You got to
absolutely.
have them on here. So they're just brilliant. The first chapter is Tracy, the mom, telling what she went through. Then Ido had a journal, and you get to read his process. So different parts really hit me. So I would sit with Bakari and read to him, and I would watch him. The first time I met him, I said, I met a boy like you who had a speech at the conference today. And he was like, what? So when I would read, you could see he understood, and then certain things he would just break down in tears because, he and Ido get each other. And he was listening to the words of a man, a young man like him. And Ido's in college right now, people.
Yes, that's right.
That's the way he did it. That's the way his family
Miss
did
Warrior
it.
Woman, Supermom. I have a question for you. It's a bit controversial.
And we've only got like 3 minutes.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Recently, a whistleblower came out saying the CDC
covered up,
destroyed and covered up evidence linking in a study definitively the MMR with African American boys.
Yes.
When this came out and you heard about it, tell us how you felt.
There was an article that came out. I had a friend who actually sent me a link. I read it, I posted it, I freaked, I cried. I was on break at work, and then I really couldn't work anymore.
I remember you emailed me that day.
Yes, and I shared it with other coworkers, and other people were very emotionally affected by this. Now, at the same time, within an hour or so, the article was yanked, and the media, mass media, did not jump on it.
No.
Now, there are African American media who covered it later on, but it wasn't really something that snowballed into the mass attention. Now that's unfortunate, and this is an uphill battle. We know there's a predisposition that causes the MMR to affect some children. It's rationalized away in that, true, some parents don't give their children the MMR and they still end up with autism. And then there are times when they say that that autism presents itself during the same timeline that the MMR is given. So we have all of these rationales to reason it away, but it's still a fact that too many parents lived. And unfortunately, prior to that, Jenny McCarthy came out quite strongly with research done by, Dr. Wakefield, and he's been raked through the coals by the media. But nonetheless, she experienced it as well, and I believe she took one for the team, and we have lived too long to watch things scientifically proven that turned out not to be so, or things that were told that were great that turned out to be bad for us. So we just have to live long enough and watch, the people that are in control, who are, controlling the media and controlling research, really get to the bottom of this. And I do believe that there was merit in that.
And unfortunately,
we're out of
totally
time.
out of time.
But I do one brief message to our parents from this inspirational woman before we leave. Look at the camera and tell parents what you want them to know.
You be strong. You believe. You believe first. If you don't, you will not get your children into adulthood. And we are leaving them one day. They're going to be 50, 70, and 90. We're growing older. Get them ready.
Wonderful. We're totally out of time, and thank you so much for being here with us. You are an inspiration. We're thrilled to have had you. We're out of time. No show tomorrow. We're back on Tuesday with Dr. Copeland and other guests. Make sure you tune in. We're out of time. Kelby keeps telling me, give your kiddos a hug for me.
And yourselves a hug for me.
Bye-bye for now.
Bye.